The rice fields mimic those wetlands. It's not the exact same. The food sources aren't the same, but we can get what we need to out of that. So we're going to use this. It's what's there. 80% of the Mississippi Louisville Valley is agriculture. That's why Ducks Unlimited care about rice.
We've been talking about the economics of rice production in the Delta, but there are some factors that we haven't considered, namely the overlap with water management, wildlife, and the ecosystem. In some cases, that intersection, especially with duck hunting, expands the economic opportunities on farms. Welcome back to the Purdue Commercial AgCast. I'm Chad Fiechter. This episode is part of our Lessons from the Delta series, where Todd and I traveled through Arkansas talking with farmers, researchers, and industry leaders about rice production systems. In this episode, we're in eastern Arkansas, standing in the middle of a rice field, trying to understand how one of the most water-intensive crops in agriculture is also playing a role in conservation, and why organizations like Ducks Unlimited are working directly with farmers.
All right. Patrick, you were just saying something about those birds. What's their name?
So those are black-necked stilts. They are actually breeding now in the rice fields here. So when we're driving around here, we'll see a lot of these. We'll see a lot of shorebirds and stuff. These are just really cool.
All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where we're at.
All right. So my name is Patrick Dill. I'm the Rice Stewardship Coordinator for Ducks Unlimited. We are in Poinsett County, just outside of Harrisburg, on a rice farm, rice soybean rotation. We are at a USGS well. So one question that we get a lot is why does Ducks Unlimited care about rice? We do wetlands, flooded timber, stuff like that. Waterfowl breed in Canada, North Dakota, South Dakota. That's one of our primary target. It's a priority 1 zone for us. That's where we've spent a lot of our early time working. But we also realized as an organization, you got to send healthy birds back up to breed. You got to send enough birds back up to breed. Those birds will migrate during the winter down to the Mississippi Louisville Valley, through the Gulf Coast and parts of California. So those have become priority 1 areas also. They're just non-breeding grounds. So we're right in the middle of a priority 1 non-breeding area for Ducks Unlimited. So what we're trying to do is provide habitat, food, cover from the elements, different predatory species, that we can send healthy birds, enough birds back up to Canada so they can reproduce and keep population numbers where they need to be. So the reason why this historically was great for waterfowl is that it was flooded timber, wetlands, different kinds of moist soil. That's also the reason it's great for rice farming. With very hydric soils, so we hold water great here. Perfect rice fields. So what made this good for waterfowl is kind of what destroyed it, what we converted it to rice farms. But also we can use those because rice fields, like we can see the blackneck stilts, mimic wetlands still. We still see a lot of the same species. If we go out there right now and we walk through that water, we're going to see all kinds of macroinvertebrates. So there's a rice field right there where the water's coming from one paddy to the next. We're going to catch enough snakes that we're not going to want to walk into another rice field. There's turtles, there's birds, there's fish. So you'll see a lot of these shorebirds. They'll go from like a ditch to a pond to, they'll bounce around and they'll get fish eggs on their feet. And then when they come back into the rice fields, they'll bring those eggs with them. So the ecosystem that's out in this rice field is crazy.
Wait. You're saying that you could actually get fish to move into rice fields, like when they harvest, sometimes there's fish?
Well, it's not going to be like huge fish, but like little minnows and stuff like that. So as the birds are traveling and they're moving between the ditches and the ponds and the streams and stuff, they're going to get fish eggs on their feet. And when they go from that ditch over into the rice field, some of those eggs are going to come with them and they're going to get put in there. So yeah, if we go over there right now and kind of play around, we could see little things swimming around in the water.
So what do ducks eat?
Ducks eat a little bit of everything. They feed on seeds from moist soil units, native seeds. So what we would think of as weeds probably here is what you would see in a moist soil unit, like a smart weed, different kinds of grasses. They probably prefer that, but the leftover rice seed is high in nutrient content also. So we see a lot of that.
So you don't have to worry about the ducks coming in and like eating everything.
No. We don't.
Like they can
Yeah.
coexist with the rice plants, not affected.
And so the timing of the migration with the timing of when we plant and harvest rice, there's not a lot of overlap. You'll see some early teal, but that's not an issue. most of the ducks are going to come in winter, late fall, winter, harvested, and we've just got waste seed in the field. What we do though is we have pipes with called structure for water control or boxes on the end of it where you can put boards in it. They'll put the boards back in after they've harvested and catch rainwater. Some people will artificially flood the rice fields for waterfowl. That just brings the water back up. So now they've got a wet habitat to come to. They also have that waste seed. Also, you'll get macroinvertebrates, protein sources that will come into the rice fields after harvest. Those macroinvertebrates will help deteriorate the rice residue. And then the ducks can use that, especially when they're going back north in the summer. That protein's good for them.
Okay, so what's your background? Because you obviously know a lot about rice, and you work for Ducks Unlimited as a conservationist, right?
So I got my bachelor's from Arkansas State in wildlife management. Did a short little bit with Fish and Wildlife Service. Worked for Kansas Parks and Wildlife, and then I worked for the USDA NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Services, for 7 years. I left there, worked for Arkansas State and ARS, or Agricultural Research Services, for another 3 years. And then we did research on groundwater in the state. And actually, this is one of the projects that we did it on. So roughly about 15 years of conservation work on farms. And then while I was at Arkansas State, I got my master's. My master's was using satellites to identify flooded rice fields in the winter to quantify how much habitat was there.
So what exactly are we looking at? You said we're coming here because there's a lot to see in one spot.
Again, what makes this really good for rice, for waterfowl, is the hydric soils, because we can hold water. The water is not seeping through the ground. It's you put it on the field, it's in the field. So this is not great for is aquifer recharge. So when you were coming from Memphis, I don't know if you could tell, but we have a Crowley's Ridge. Anything east of Crowley's Ridge is recharged relatively easily. You have the Mississippi River right there. There's a lot of sandy spots, so you'll get infiltration. On the west side of the ridge, you just don't see that as much. So we have groundwater decline areas where you see your hot spots of rice. So a lot of the work that we do to make sure that our rice fields is to help rice farmers be productive, but also manage those resources so that there's still water. So that's why we met here. We have a USGS observation well here. So here's a map of the priority areas.
Wait, this is Ducks Unlimited?
Yes, yeah. So here's your priority 1 breeding area. Then down here's your priority 1 non-breeding area. And then we've got those cones of depression right here. So where the darkest red is where we've used more water than we can recharge. We are roughly right there.
So for the interested listener, there's a map with green to red. We are standing in a red area, correct?
It's smack in one of the red areas.
And that just means that
the water is
it's
very low.
How
There's-
deep is it?
So if we look at this well right here, I think at the lowest it was this year was at 130 feet down
To water.
to water. So from here down, it's 130 feet till you hit water. On another well prior to coming across the ridge, when you're looking at the graph, it kind of bebops between 25 and 30 feet. So I mean, like almost 100-foot difference of water.
Jeez. So pre-rice, let's say 1920, pre-major irrigated ag production here. What do you think the water levels would have been?
I think that would have been similar to what you see over there.
Okay.
If we're not pumped the water out, I think the water would have been
water
just
would
as
have
high.
been very similar.
Yep.
So 100 feet in 100 years.
To put that into perspective, rice uses more water than any other major crop grown in this region, and in some areas, groundwater levels are dropping fast. So the challenge becomes, can a farmer keep growing rice under the same practices?
We're doing a lot of work to mitigate that through different ways. We're either irrigating more efficiently, or we're trying to irrigate different ways so that we're not using as much water. Rice uses the most water out of any of the crops that we grow in Arkansas. It uses 30 acre inches of water typically. You can do different things the way you irrigate it. You can row irrigate it, kind of like what you would do with beans or corn. It uses a little bit less water. It might affect the yield a little bit. You can do AWD, where it's a similar setup here, but we'll pump it up and then we'll let it kind of go down to a mud flat. That also helps with carbon, different greenhouse gases. And the water's not necessary for the rice to grow. It's more for weeds. So the weeds can't grow in the water. The rice can. So if we hold water on it, then we don't have the same issue with weeds, which is the issue with row rice or rice grown in furrows. If you don't have that standing water on it, then you're going to have weed problems. So then you're going to have, you're going to
And
have,
if you get pigweed, we don't have any traits in rice.
Yep.
Right. So soybeans, you're fine,
Yep.
but you're kind of screwed if you grow rice and you get a bunch of pigweed. The other thing, so I don't know how many listeners might understand acre feet or acre inches of water. So like at any given time, a flooded rice field is going to have optimally between roughly 2 and 4 inches of water. So when we say 30 acre inches of water, it means that throughout the course of a single production season, you would put a total of 30 inches on that field. And so alternate wetting and drying, though, for example, it's like you flood, you drain, you flood, you drain. You might get as little as 14 acre inches put on a field. So you can cut your water use in half. You're going to take some yield hits. Some varieties do better than others. You got weed issues. Fertilization's different. I mean, it basically changes your entire management plan. But you can save water and potentially save greenhouse gases.
But does that increase like labor time or management time?
both.
Or is it actually
Both.
AWD does both.
Both. Well, even furrow, because furrow, like right now, if you go out there, there's no beds. It's just flat. They planted the rice into it. But if you have like a soybean rice rotation and you're planting your soybeans into beds, as long as nothing crazy happens, it's not super wet when you're harvesting and those beds are still intact. You might clean it in the fall or the spring, but you can use those same beds to plant rice into. So you might just run through, clean out the furrows really quick, but the time, the diesel to flatten everything and then turn it back into beds and then flatten everything, that's removed.
The big trade-off, though, is the levee building, though, too.
Yep.
So
just to get an idea of 30 acre inches or 2.5 acre feet, an acre foot, and this is a rounded up number, is 326 gallons, and that's 2.5 acre feet of water for every acre. That's just a crazy amount of water.
times 1.5 million acres of rice in Arkansas.
Yeah, exactly. It is a lot of water that goes into rice production. And so what you're going to see, these red spots, that's where your rice production really hits. You're going to hear a lot about rice capitals. Poinsett County is typically the highest producer in rice in the state. It flip-flops because of rotations. So if it's a rice heavy year, they're the highest. If it's a bean heavy year, just because of the way the rotations fall, then they're second. And I've got the numbers here, but you're going to see a majority of rice is grown right here and then right there. And then that's just, it's not a coincidence that you see that water decline area where the highest rice is.
So, okay, here's a question, because there's spots where we, like in the Midwest, where we just started irrigating, it just kind of became economically viable. But you're saying you've been growing rice here using this amount of water. Is more water being used? Is less water being used? Like
we're definitely becoming more efficient with the water. Like I said, there's different ways to irrigate. One easier way, and what you guys might be used to, is like with polypipe. It's called a multi-inlet rice irrigation, where they'll pull polypipe from the riser all the way across, and they'll punch holes in each paddy. So instead of pumping up water in the top paddy and letting it cascade down, they're pumping up each paddy at the same time. It makes it more efficient. The water gets across it a little quicker.
So at the research station, the Northeast Arkansas Rice Research, they're a very efficient water. Well, we observe that's a really efficient water system.
Yep, and I think that's what you're going to start seeing. Farmers, they're dependent on this. They realize it, and that's what we're going to go see this reservoir in a second. You're going to see more of these reservoirs, more surface water, and more efficiency. And I would expect that you would start to see some sort of rebound in the aquifer just based off of that. It's definitely slowed down a lot over the last few years. But yeah, because of the farmers realizing, that this is happening, they've taken those steps to make sure that they're going to leave it better than they found it. That's the goal to most people that farm. They don't want to give their kids something that's, not going to work. The rice fields mimic those wetlands. It's not the exact same. The food sources aren't the same, but we can get what we need to out of that. So we're going to use this. It's what's there. 80% of the Mississippi Louisville Valley is agriculture. You can't change that overnight. You don't want to change that overnight because the human population is skyrocketing. We got to feed everybody. A good way to do that's through rice production. So we're not going to try to get rid of it. We got to keep it. We just got to work with each other.
Another really important component of like Delta land values, Delta culture, is duck hunting and like the recreational aspect. So like Aaron was talking about how back in the 1800s, people moved in here and started to log, clear the land, drain it. Today, there is immense value placed on places that weren't logged and what they call green tree reservoirs. So places with live trees that can be flooded and then hunted for ducks. So sometimes those are more valuable than Class A cropland is.
No way.
In the Delta.
People make tens of thousands of dollars putting up duck blinds and setting up a little cabin. Stuttgart is the duck capital of the world.
Really? I've never been duck hunting. So there's got to be just a crazy amount of money in like guided duck hunts or hosting
an insane
groups,
Lodges.
Lots of out of state. Well, there's a lot of people in the state that duck hunt, but there's, especially in the prime regions of the Delta, there's immense influx of out of state duck hunters. Some of the duck like clubs have their own wildlife biologists. They have their own management staff. It's
No way.
Very
because you're trying to like you want the best environment for the ducks.
That's right.
Yes, they're like farming. They're farming rice and farming soybeans or whatever,
That's
but they're
amazing.
doing it in a way that is most optimal for duck hunting.
It is an economic decision in the farm.
Well, I mean, we have a little bit of that in pockets of the Midwest where guys are trying to be very intentional about deer population management.
That's what y'all got to bring us into. We'll bring you down for a duck hunt, and y'all bring us up for a whitetail hunt.
We'll have to introduce you to some other people because
Yeah.
neither of us are hunters.
Frankly, I love to whitetail hunt. So does Colson. But if we're going to do it for the cultural experience, come down here and let's go duck hunting. We'll,
Yeah, it's a thing. It's like if you have kids, if you have a son, you're like, we'll take them duck hunting. That's a rite of passage.
very much so.
And people are like at the level of, they have a George Foreman or a griddle or a grill in the duck blind. They're making, they got a Blackstone in there and they're cooking bacon and eggs and biscuits while they're duck hunting.
So this isn't just production agriculture. It's a system that supports recreation, tourism, and a deeply rooted culture in the Delta. What we saw here expands our assumptions about agriculture. These farmers aren't just maximizing yield, they're balancing production with water use, wildlife habitat, and long-term sustainability. And in situations where water is becoming the limiting factor, that balance matters.
What surprised you while you were there?
I don't think anything really surprised me other than like the nuance of farming. It became very apparent to me. We were moving across counties and they were still growing rice, but they were growing rice in different ways across the county. Because I've raised corn and soybeans, like I haven't really thought about the unique differences between raising one specific crop. So I've always thought about it in sort of like systems thinking, and it was very different. And then the groups of people who were working in those areas were different. So that the west side of Crawley's Ridge, there was like one group of farmers, and then on the other side, there was a different group of farmers.
Yeah, and the production practices would be different. The commodities they could grow would be different. Their access to water is very different. Then there's also the whole harvesting it and selling it and the different uses of rice.
Yeah.
There's not like just like number 2 yellow rice.
Yeah.
There's the quality of
true.
the grain after it's harvested.
Yep.
Dictates what can be done with it. Some of it ends up just like as animal food, pet food. Some of it we eat here.
I was just with some of my nieces and nephews, and I was like, do you guys know what the difference between brown rice and white rice is?
Yeah, it's the same rice.
It's the same rice. Well, one of the things I think we both agreed was it was fun to think about a crop that is grown for human consumption. At least in my world, I won't speak for you, but a lot of times I'm thinking about commodity production that's going into animal feed, or it's going into fuel, or it's going, like there's
industrial uses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is going to be consumed by people right out of the field, could be.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things was the idea of like it being a staple food. So like it's not really a staple food in my diet. It seemed to be more of a staple food to people who live in the Delta.
Yeah, which is funny to me because there's this weird love-hate relationship with rice among rice farmers. So they eat it a bunch, and apparently like if you go to an extension event, like you've got to have rice on the table, right? It'd be like going to the national pork producers and just having turkey burgers. They eat rice probably as much as Brian Martin, our guest, who's a hog farmer, eats pork.
No, 100%. You're thinking about ways to eat rice.
But they have this harmless view of nature, but there's so many things in nature there that like want to do harm to you or could do harm to you. There's the snakes, there's mosquitoes, which we came strategically to avoid the depth of mosquito season. The ticks. People were like, "Oh, don't even look at the grass. You're going to get a tick on you." And we met with when we met with our friend from Ducks Unlimited. He called our host Aaron,
yes,
and said, "Hey, just want to let you know I found a tick. Make sure you guys are checking for ticks." Like he followed up later about his tick incident.
Well, and
he also said he saw 46 snakes in a day or something like that?
So I think that there's a part where it was like there's a pragmatism towards navigating the things that are going to kill you that I like. As a person who's grown up in Indiana, we don't really have sort of like off limits things. Like you can walk through there. Don't worry about that. You can do that. In there, it was like, don't go under the trees, stay out of the tall grass, right? It was like we found rules fairly quickly where it's like, hey, do this, do that. And it wasn't sort of like people with an overabundance of caution. It was like hardened people saying like, stay out of the grass, don't go under the trees. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes people give you advice and you're like, I think I'm going to go stand under the trees.
These were not like nervous type people.
I don't think we met anyone that was nervous.
It wasn't like they were like the stereotypical like overprotective mom, you know, where it's not like they're like making their kids wear air tags in their clothes because they want to know where they are. Like it's like I generally don't worry about anything, but I worry about these ticks.
Yeah. Well, and they also in ticks, mosquitoes, snakes, like it was like, do this. And I was like, well, maybe my fear of snakes, like maybe this is what I need. Like, and I need to just go and learn how to deal with snakes.
Yeah. The other one is they also recreate a lot where they work. So they have all these big ponds, retention ponds, or what we would call them.
Yeah.
But 100 acres or more of water that they're saving to be able to flood the fields when they need it. But those are also full of crazy amount of fish. Every time we went to ponds, particularly in the morning or at night, fish were just like all over the place. So they're duck hunting, they're fishing, like they're recreating.
They're hunting gators.
Yeah. So it's just all this stuff. So like this working, recreate, like you just like, it had a real sense of place. And the part of it too is, again, this idea of them being sort of the dairy of crops. Like you've got to be around that farm, like talking to the farmers.
Yes.
There's like kind of like a morning check and an evening check. And that's not even like the like work. Like that's not like you necessarily doing anything. You've got to at least like check in on everything. If our listener is as clueless about rice production as I was before we went.
To be fair, neither of us have any experience with irrigation.
Yeah. But
so there's probably other places
too. My misunderstanding. Call in, write us if I'm saying this wrong. But you plant the rice and then you flood it.
For weed control.
In part for weed control. The rice does really well. But there's like an optimal amount of water to have in there. And if there's a lot of rain that comes through, you can have too much water. Mm-hmm. If your levee breaks or there's something wrong with your well, like you can have too little water.
Yep.
So what they're always doing is like fiddling with the water to get it to that optimal level that you want, against nature trying to make it more or less than you want it to be.
Correct.
And so the water chasing is that act of like aiming for optimal all the time. And these farms are huge. They're thousands of acres.
Yeah.
And so it's not like a backyard garden where it's like, I'm going to go check and make sure there's no deer out here. And I can, that'll take me 2 minutes.
You're talking, you're moving around in a pickup truck. You're walking on levees. You're literally checking physically, like what's the depth?
Yes.
Do I need to adjust something? Is the pump still working?
And then we think about technology in agriculture. Like there's all sorts of, this used to just be like an art. Like some guy would kind of feel it out or sense it, right? But now they're checking flow meters, they're checking depth, all of that like electronically. Some of that they're able to do, remotely to get some idea. But then you have to go at least every once in a while, a couple times a day, it sounds like in most places, to verify that data with your own physical senses.
No, I think that was the thing is that I think Colson said it. I wonder how many sort of technological tools have been developed for rice farming because specifically around water. But it still struck me that almost even the most technologically advanced, they were doing these rounds. The person in charge of water or persons was literally doing physical rounding, checking all these fields, making sure that even though they would have sort of on their phone, what's the levels? Are we working? Is the pump working? So it was like, it wasn't something that you can like tech your way out of.
Yeah, well, and the pumps sometimes are electricity, some places they're diesel, right? So there's like a mechanical thing you got to think about, right? So like if we're even at the experiment station, which should be as close to like a perfectly controlled environment, they were talking about like issues they were having with the power company with like, is this well working or is this, and like we got to get somebody to come out and check it, right? Because some of that you can't do yourself.
So I think what I'm coming back from this specific experience is maybe not specifically tied to rice. It's around sort of the general concept. I'm like, oh, that was so fun to like take a deep dive and like pull out all of my preconceived notions and just experience something. Like I love that.
So I've spent a lot of my career in the Corn Belt and thinking about Corn Belt economics and Corn Belt. So I mean, the Center for Commercial Agriculture, that's bulk of what we do, right?
That's what we do.
But I was like, oh, I need to get into other kinds of agriculture.
Yeah.
Like we like on the way home, we were discussing like, oh, it'd be cool to go to California, see some permanent crops. It'd be cool to go to out to Eastern Washington and see like the dry land agriculture up there. Or like, I'm like, oh, we should go back to, I should go to, I've been to Montana to go to the national parks, but I should go like just visit farms.
Yeah.
That I was like, I want to do more of this. That's a big part of it. The other one, and I'm maybe should not say this on the podcast, but I'm going to.
Do it.
I learned a lot from the extension folks and sort of what would be kind of our colleagues. And we did talk shop a little bit about funding and grantsmanship and hiring talent and all the things we think about as academics. But what I really loved was like when we hung out with the farmer and talked about his experience, or like I mentioned, the Ducks Unlimited, right?
Yeah.
Or even the folks that were running the distillery, about their farm and their production of. We went on a tour of the distillery. They told us their whole distilling process.
Right.
That I was like, I need to spend more time around practitioners that are actually doing this stuff, and then go talk to the academics or think about the academics. But I was like, man, like I wish I was doing more of that, because I talk to other university type folks all the time.
Right.
Here at Purdue,
right.
When we travel around, I'll go to conferences and it's people like us from other departments, other colleges. And I was like, man, I got to just like spend more time. And even like spending time with Colson. And so he works in farmland investment and was talking to us about like sort of how they acquire properties, how they go through like that part of his job as a kind of a practitioner, as somebody who studies land prices, right? So I should probably mention I'm the Schrader Chair in Farmland Economics.
Nice.
I study land prices, right?
Yeah.
And I'm working right now on our extension report about which our listeners will have already been able to read about Indiana land prices, right? Mm-hmm. But like spending more time around the practitioners working in that space, like I just want to do more of it going forward. If you think your place
oh my gosh
would be as beneficial to us as this one was, get a hold of us.
And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from this entire series. When I step outside of what I know, for me, the Corn Belt, outside of systems I'm familiar with, I started to see how many different ways there are to make agriculture work. In the Delta, it's water, it's rice, it's wildlife, it's a completely different set of constraints and a completely different set of solutions. But the underlying theme is the same. Farmers are adapting. They're managing risk, they're making decisions with the resources they have, and they're building systems that are designed to last. And for us, this trip was a reminder that if you really want to understand agriculture, you got to go see it. You got to talk to the people doing it, and you got to be willing to challenge some of your own assumptions along the way. We had a lot of fun putting this series together, and we hope you found it valuable. If you did, make sure you're subscribed to the Purdue Commercial AgCast. We've got more conversations like this coming, along with our regular Ag Economy Barometer updates. Thanks for joining us for the Lessons from the Delta. We'll see you next time.